I'm Tanya Ray, and I moved to Australia right after my 43rd birthday, and this is the how, what's, whens, and whys about it. So, first up, I think a common misconception people have when I say this is either one, that I moved here solo as a way to start over, which I am essentially starting over in a lot of ways, but that's not true. I moved here with my husband. And another common misconception is that I had some 5 or 10 year plan to get here, and I totally understand why people would assume that because it is very expensive to move here and to live here. So it's not something that you want to be thrust into unless you have a good reason why. So here is the reason why my husband and I came here. We were living in the US. I am American, and my husband is a Kiwi, which is a New Zealand citizen, and he was on a work visa, and it was contingent to the specific job that he was working. Unfortunately, they were doing mass layoffs, and he was one of the lucky ones. So, when that happened back in October of 2025, we knew that we were going to have to leave the US, even if it was just temporary, but due to a lot of different reasons, but one of them being what my husband does for a living, it made more sense to look outside of the US. So our options were, for the most part, either go back to New Zealand, which didn't necessarily make sense just for opportunities, or come to Australia. Now, we had been in Perth, Australia, Western Australia, which is where we are now, in 2022, 2023. It was a temporary move with his company. So we had already lived here and we loved it. The only thing that was holding us back from wanting to be here permanently, which we weren't given that option, just to be clear, was that we had a dog back home that was staying with my parents, and also just having family and friends around and everything that I grew up with. We didn't live in the state that my family did or that I grew up in, but still, it's a lot easier to visit family and friends when you're on the same continent than being here in Australia. So there is a bit of that, of missing out on things. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself here. So, back when my husband lost his job, we knew that we were going to have to leave, and it made most sense to come back to Perth because there are a lot of opportunities here, and specifically in the type of work that he does. And we knew that we loved it. And I joke, but it's kind of true, that I manifested so hard that my husband lost his job, because we really did want to come back to Perth, but we were not making any plans to, because he was gainfully employed in a job that for the most part he enjoyed, and we had our life in Denver. So we thought maybe someday we would come back, maybe the company would move us again or something like that, but we had no plans. We weren't saving up for this or anything like that. We weren't, like I said, making a 5 or 10 or 15 year plan, a retirement plan, any of that. And then it was kind of thrust upon us. And I feel like that's how life works. If something is meant for you, it's not going to miss you. And I do feel like us being back in Perth has been sort of a full circle thing, and it was meant for us. But that doesn't mean that it's all been butterflies and rainbows, as much as I am so grateful to be here. So here's kind of what transpired after we realized we're going to have to move. We found out that we would have a timeline of about 5 months, which was great because with all of that going on, we didn't know. There's definitely a certain number of days that you're allowed to stay in the US once you've been let go from your job if you're on that particular visa. And so fortunately, he was given until early February, so we could stay for the holidays and have some time. We still only had about 4 or 5 months from the time that we found out to the time that he left. So I say he left because he gets a automatic visa as long as New Zealand citizens have a Kiwi passport and they are in good standing, like don't have a criminal record and things like that. They can just come into Australia on a visa and they don't have to apply for it. It's just automatically granted when they get here. Me, on the other hand, just because I'm the spouse doesn't mean that I get a free pass. I don't have permanent residency or a Kiwi passport, so I had to apply for a visa. And I don't want to get into the specifics of the visa or anything like that, but there's never any guarantees when you're doing that, right? So it was coming up on the holiday season. I was a bundle of nerves because I didn't know how long it could possibly take. They were saying that the visa that I applied for was like 50% of the people that were putting in for that visa were getting it granted within about 3 or 4 months. So I knew I didn't really have any time to play with if I wanted to leave with my husband, but it was the holidays coming up. And one thing that I love about Australia is that they take holiday season seriously. It's not all about work. It's not all about hustle culture here. And so I knew that they would probably be taking some time off. And I ended up getting an email, I think it was on December 12th or something like that. We were packing up our house and it said they need more evidence that my husband and I are actually married and intend to stay that way. So I was freaking out because I figured that's probably around the time that they are going off on holiday until the new year, and I knew my husband had to leave by February 3rd. I finally got everything in that they asked for. I needed letters from family members and photo albums and things like that. I got that in on Christmas Eve. I can't remember if it was Christmas Eve in Australia or the US, but it was definitely holiday time, so I knew they would not see it until maybe sometime in January. So I was getting pretty depressed, if I'm being honest. On December 22nd, my dog passed away, and we were not bringing her to Australia because she had high anxiety, but we did not know that she was sick. She did not show any signs of being sick until about a week before she passed, and then we knew that she only had a few days, if that, with us. And so we had to say goodbye to her. She was going to live with my parents, and that was already sad to have to leave her behind, but we knew that it would be selfish for us to try to bring her here because of her high anxiety. And I would love to make another post about that if somebody's curious. I never went through the process of bringing a pet over, but I did do a lot of research about it from the last time that we lived here. So I can do that. Just let me know in the comments if you're interested. So with that, I was already grieving her, and I had been grieving leaving her and my family. And then we were staying with my parents because it didn't make sense to continue paying rent when we were moving. So we were out of our lease. We were staying with my parents for the last amount of time and just obviously spending time with my family. And I knew that my husband was getting ready to leave. At the same time, my parents are snowbirds, so they were getting ready to leave for Arizona for the winter, and I was getting left in northern Minnesota in winter. My 43rd birthday was looming, and I was kind of going into a bit of a depression, poor me spiral, if I'm being honest. Sometimes we just have to allow ourselves to go there, I think. My parents were getting ready to leave for Arizona at the end of January. My husband also had to leave at the end of January because I think he had to stop in Denver before he went to LA and flew out to Australia. So I knew that if I did not get my visa granted before then, I was going to be alone for that as well as my birthday. And in my parents' house that I had lived in from about age 13 on, all alone in the middle of winter, all of the feelings, all of the things that I didn't really have time to feel when we were going through all of this because it was a whirlwind. We technically had 4.5 months, but if you think about packing up your whole life in that time, making plans, trying to figure out what's going to happen once you get to a foreign country, and how you're going to get the visas, how you're going to get your stuff, what you need to pack, all of the things, as well as it's holiday season. You're saying goodbye to your whole family. It was a lot. It was a whirlwind. And so once all of that took place, everyone was gone. I was alone with my thoughts. I ended up getting a gym membership and a salt spa membership just to help myself stay focused on decompression and feeling my feelings, but not getting stuck in my thoughts because I'm an air sign, and so I do that a lot. So fast forward, everyone has left. I've been alone for about a week. It's February 3rd, and I know my husband's about to fly out of LA. It's around 11 p.m. my time, and I go to text him to just make sure everything's good to go. He's about to board the plane and all of that. And I noticed that I have an email from Australian immigration, and my heart stops because I'm like, oh my goodness, is this going to be, we need more information? Is it going to be not granted? Is it going to be granted? Is it just a message like that they're letting me know that they're still working on it? What is it? Well, spoiler alert, it said granted. So probably 20 minutes of when my husband was going to board his plane, I find out that I can leave for Australia. So I did end up spending my 43rd birthday in Minnesota, but a few days later on February 13th, which was a Friday, I started my journey back here. And it has been really interesting because I have experienced Perth in a different way. I've been here now for almost 5 months, and before I was more in tourist mode. I was actually on a tourist visa, so I couldn't work or anything like that. Only my husband could, and I just bopped around. I also knew that it was going to be temporary, so I made the most of it. Whereas now I'm here for the long haul, and I know that it's time to immerse myself in the culture a little bit more. It's not that I didn't do that before, but this is my home now. So it's been really interesting. It's been really interesting just being present with my thoughts and my feelings and taking it all in. And I'm ready to start sharing what's coming up for me and why, as well as sharing just some of the practical things about if you are somebody who wants to move to Australia or anywhere really. I'm not an expert on any of it, but I know a little bit more about moving down under because I've lived in New Zealand and this is my second time in Australia. So join me if this interests you, and I appreciate each and every one of you who have stuck around for this story, and I'll see you soon.